Many years ago, in a faraway kingdom surrounded by lush green hills and shimmering lakes, lived a young princess named Amara. She was known throughout the kingdom for her kindness and intelligence. Her days were spent visiting the sick and the poor, and her nights were spent reading books, trying to learn everything she could. One day, a neighboring king proposed a marriage between his son and Princess Amara. And although the princess's father, the king, thought highly of the offer, he wanted Amara to choose her own husband. "Your happiness is my first concern," he told her. "So I want you to marry someone you love." Amara was worried. How could she find a husband she loved when she knew nothing about the world outside of the castle walls? Her father, wanting to help her, invited neighboring princes from all around to compete in a series of challenges, hoping that one of them would win her heart. As the wedding date approached, Amara spent her days poring over books, learning everything she could about the princes and their families. On the day of the competition, she watched from a tower window as they arrived. First came Prince Caius, tall and handsome, with flowing golden hair and eyes like the summer sky. Then there was Prince Tristan, whose dark hair and dark eyes made him look like a brooding storm cloud. Finally, Prince Elian arrived. He wasn't as tall as the others, nor did he have flowing locks or piercing eyes, but there was something about him, the way he held himself, the kindness in his smile, that made Amara's heart skip a beat. The competitions began, and soon the princes were off showing their skills. Caius easily won the archery contest, his arrows finding their marks with perfect accuracy. Tristan excelled in the sword fights, his movements swift and deadly. Elian, though, wasn't so confident. When it was his turn for the archery, he missed his target completely. And during the sword fight, he accidentally tripped over his own feet. Disappointed, Amara thought maybe her heart had been wrong. Perhaps it was foolish to think that any of these men could make her happy. As the day wore on and the competitions continued, Amara noticed something unusual. Prince Kea, despite being the clear winner, seemed unhappy. He scowled and snapped at the servants, and even injured a horse in a fit of temper. Prince Torsten, too, had a dark side. When he wasn't competing, he boasted loudly and crudely about his conquests and made rude comments about the female competitors. Prince Elian, though, was different. While the other princes showed off their strength and speed, Elian helped the injured animals, calmed the frightened competitors, and comforted the tired judges. By the end of the day, when all the scores were tallied, Prince Caius had won the most events, followed closely by Prince Tristan, and Elian had, unfortunately, won none. According to her father, Amara was to marry the winner. So she went to him and said, "You have proven yourself to be a worthy competitor, Prince Caius, but I cannot marry someone I don't know." She turned to Torsten, who was staring at her angrily. "As for you, Prince Torsten, your boorish behavior has shown me that you are not the kind of man I could ever love, that left only Elias, though he hadn't won a single event." Amara felt a connection with him. Still, she knew her father would never agree, so she went to him and said, "Father, I want to marry Prince Elias." The king was furious. "What are you talking about? You must marry the winner of the competition." "But father, I love Prince Elias." "Love is a silly fantasy. You don't truly love him. You barely know him. I may not know what kind of king he'll be, but I know what kind of husband and partner he'll be for me." Amara's defiance surprised her father. For a moment, he was speechless. Then, sighing, he agreed to let her marry Elian. At first, the wedding preparations went well. The people of the kingdom were shocked, but ultimately supportive of their princess's choice. However, as the wedding date approached, the king became more and more uneasy. He couldn't help but wonder if he'd made a mistake. After all, who was this Ilya? What made him think he could be a good king? On the day of the wedding, the king decided he'd had enough, confronted Elian, demanding to know what made him think he could become king. Elian looked at the king with respect and understanding. "My king, I know that you only want what is best for your daughter and your kingdom, and I assure you, I will work tirelessly to make you proud. I will be a fair and just king, and I will always put the needs of my people first." The king considered his answer, then nodded curtly. "Very well, let the wedding commence." After the ceremony, the king gave Amara and Elian a grand tour of the kingdom. They visited the bustling cities and the peaceful villages. They met with the nobles and the commoners. Everywhere they went, Ilian impressed everyone with his intelligence, compassion, and leadership skills. Meanwhile, Cassius and Tristan weren't far behind. They'd watched from afar as Amara chose Ilian, and they couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. But they were noble and respected princes, and they knew how to hide their feelings. So they put on a brave face and offered their congratulations. Years passed, and Amara and Ilian ruled wisely and compassionately. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and life seemed perfect. That is, until one day when a neighboring kingdom declared war. The king and his queen were devastated. They never wanted their children to experience the horrors of war. When the armies arrived, Amara and Elias knew they had to be brave for their people. They gathered their advisors and planned their defense. As the battle raged on, the king and queen prayed for their son's safety. They knew he was old enough to fight, but they hoped he'd stayed out of the worst of it. Then one day a messenger arrived. "My king, my queen, your son has returned. He was wounded in battle, but he is alive." Relieved, the king and queen rushed to meet their son. But when they embraced him, they noticed something strange. Their brave, boisterous son was gone, replaced by a somber young man with haunted eyes. Over the next few weeks, the young prince recovered, but his spirit remained broken. No matter what his parents did, they couldn't cheer him up. Troubled, the king and queen went to the one person they thought could help, the man their son had become so much like. Prince Ilian listened patiently as they told him about their son, then nodded understandingly. He's seen too much death and destruction. He needs to find a reason to live again. Ilian took it upon himself to help the young prince heal. He taught him about his own experiences in the war, how he'd coped with the loss of his men and the guilt he'd felt. Most importantly, he gave him hope, reminding him of the good in the world and the importance of carrying on. Slowly but surely, the young prince began to heal. He started taking an interest in ruling again and spending time with his sister. One day, the king and queen found the young prince laughing as he raced his sister through the castle halls. They couldn't help but smile. They knew their son had found his way back. Years passed, and the young prince grew into a wise and compassionate ruler. The people loved him and his sister, and together they led the kingdom to prosperity. All the while, Prince Ilian watched proudly, knowing he'd played a part in saving not just the kingdom, but a life. In the end, neither brother had conquered the forest. Instead, the forest had conquered them, stripping them of their preconceptions and forcing them to confront the most important battle of their lives, the battle within. There was a time before the wilds, before the test, when the princes of Duran were known by different names. Arian was called Swift Arrow, the sharpshooter. Karin was called Lionheart, the unbeatable warrior, now victorious and changed. They earned new titles. Arian, the kindred. Karin, the wise. For while they were both, indeed, kings of the same domain, they learned that their kingdoms were not just mountains and men, but also beasts and trees, each deserving of respect, each deserving of protection. Now, if you've noticed, we've used the word conquer quite a bit in this story so far, haven't we? Not just physical conquest, but mental and spiritual conquest too. Well, today we want to talk about why conquest may not be such a good thing. You remember the last time you tried to conquer something? Maybe it was a difficult homework assignment or a big project at work. How did it feel when you finally finished it? Were you proud? Were you relieved? Perhaps both. But let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture. What happens when we try to conquer something on a larger scale, like an entire nation or an entire forest? History is full of stories of conquerors and their conquests, but at what cost? We all know that physical conquest can cause destruction and suffering, but what about the mental and spiritual toll? How does trying to conquer something affect our minds and souls? Let's explore these questions together as we bring this tale to a close. So join us, and let's dive in. When Arian and Karin embarked on their journey to the wilds, they were not just going into a forest. They were entering a test of character, a challenge to their beliefs and values. This is often the case with journeys, in stories, and in life. When we set out on a new path, we don't just face external challenges, we also face internal ones. The forest, with its beauty and danger, became a mirror reflecting the strengths and weaknesses of the princes. It was a place where they could not rely on their status, their weapons, or their past achievements. They had to confront the realities of the present. Upon meeting the bull, a clear division emerged. Arion chose understanding, seeking to comprehend the source of the creature's aggression. Charon chose conquest, ready to claim victory by overpowering the beast. Each path mirrored one of the two halves of the upcoming reign. Arion's peaceful approach aligned with his intended role as king, focusing on governance and diplomacy. Charon's martial approach suited his position as commander, emphasizing strength and strategy. Interestingly, neither choice was inherently superior. Both paths were valid reflections of their characters and roles. The story doesn't promote one over the other. Instead, it highlights the value of both understanding and force in different contexts. But ultimately, it's the combination of both that leads to the most balanced and effective leadership. Just as a king needs both wisdom and military strength, so does a society, and the story recognizes this harmony. However, it also shows that the effectiveness of each approach depends on the individual. Charon's initial strategy of brute force fails because he lacks understanding. He's attempting to impose his will on the situation without comprehending the underlying causes. Similarly, Arion's approach, though successful, is not without its challenges. His victory comes at the cost of his own safety and his brother's bruised ego. Therefore, the true lesson lies in recognizing the strengths of each approach and mitigating their weaknesses. Combining understanding with strategic forcefulness can lead to more effective solutions. Just as Arion and Charon learned from their experiences, so too can we in our real-world situations. Yet the story goes beyond simply advocating for a balanced approach. It also examines the nature of victory itself. Arion's success in calming the bull leads to a unique outcome, not the expected conquest, but a chance for understanding and coexistence. This challenges our traditional notions of winning, which are often associated with dominance or superiority. Arion's victory is not about subjugating the bull, but about establishing a connection. It's a testament to the power of empathy and communication over force. This idea is echoed in the final moments of the story. When King Virith reflects on the prince's actions, he doesn't focus on who fought harder or who claimed victory in a conventional sense. Instead, he emphasizes the importance of perspective and understanding. He highlights the significance of Arion's ability to perceive and respond to the bull's pain, declaring that the question is not who fought harder, but who saw deeper. This challenges our perception of success and encourages us to consider the deeper implications of our actions. As we conclude this tale, we're left to ponder the complexities of conquest and the multifaceted nature of victory. The story urges us to look beyond surface-level achievements and consider the deeper impacts of our choices, not just on ourselves, but also on those around us. Whether it's our relationships, our careers, or our interactions with the world around us, this story reminds us that the true measure of success often lies in our ability to understand, empathize, and connect with others, even or perhaps especially when they are different from us. Now, we'd love to hear from you. If you ever had to choose between understanding and force, which did you choose and why? Also, what does this story make you think about the way you define victory? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to check out the links in the description for more resources related to this story and others like it. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. We'll see you next time. A long time ago in the great kingdom of Duran, there lived two brothers, Arion and Charon. Now, when their father, the late King Vikram, had passed away, Arion had become the king and Charon the crown prince, ready to ascend the throne when the time came. For many years, the kingdom of Duran had suffered under the heavy-handed rule of an evil queen, and all they had dreamed for was a better future. But as destiny would have it, Arion and Charon's peaceful existence would soon be disrupted by a series of mysterious events that threatened to tear apart everything that they had worked so hard to achieve. Now, let's start our story. The kingdom of Duran was at peace. With Arion on the throne and Charon commanding the royal guard, the people prospered. Markets were busy, festivals returned, and the land seemed to breathe again after years of uncertainty. But peace, like the forest, hides many things in its silence. A whisper in the wind one stormy evening, a rider came to the palace gates drenched in mud and panic. The bull, it's back. He collapsed at the guard's feet. Arion was summoned at once. He found the man shaking by the fire, where the king asked gently. In the western hills, the rider replied. It destroyed the grain barns near Hyrel. No one was killed, but the villagers fled. Arion's heart sank. Karin entered the room, already dressed for travel. If it's the same bull, it's hurt again. Or disturbed. Aryan nodded. I'll come with you. Karin raised a brow. You're the king now. You should stay. I'm not a king who sends others where he won't go himself. Back to the wild, the brothers rode west with a small company of guards. As they approached Hyrel, the damage was clear. Broken fences, scorched fields, and frightened cattle. They found old hoof prints in the dirt, deep, angry. But something was strange. Aryan crouched and examined them closely. These are different. Karin frowned. What do you mean? Aryan pointed to the spacing. This bull is larger, much larger, and heavier. I don't think this is the same one. Karin stood still, and it's not a return. It's a new threat. Aryan looked toward the dark forest, or a warning. The new beast, they tracked the bull for 2 days. This one was not limping. It moved swiftly, left deeper trails, and knocked down entire trees. Its destruction was not wild. It was patterned almost. Controlled. Then they found it. At dusk, in a narrow valley, the bull stood beneath a dead tree. Its body was twice the size of the one they had seen before. Its horns curved upward like scythes. Its eyes burned red in the fading light. But beside it, was something unexpected. A smaller bull, younger, lame. Aryan's breath caught. It's a parent defending its calf. Suddenly, the larger bull roared, not toward them, but toward a ring of hunters that had surrounded it from the cliffs. They're trying to trap it, Karin shouted. It's going to charge. Before either prince could act, chaos exploded. Arrows flew. The bull charged in rage, scattering hunters. Screams echoed across the valley. Karin drew his sword. We have to stop this. Aryan grabbed his arm, not with steel, but Karin was already running. He clashed with the hunters, not to kill, but to stop them. Back off. Leave the beast. The bull turned on him, mistaking the gesture. Aryan sprinted forward, pulling out a flare stick from his pouch, soaked in calming herbs. He lit it and raised it high. A cloud of smoke drifted toward the bull. The beast slowed. It coughed. Its eyes watered. Then Aryan dropped his dagger. I won't hurt you, he whispered. Your calf is safe. Let us help. The bull trembled. Its massive head swayed. Then, it turned and limped away, the calf following behind. Back to the palace when the group returned, bruised but alive, Aryan called an emergency gathering of the royal council. The wilds are changing, he told them. These creatures are not invaders, they are survivors, pushed too close to our cities. He ordered new laws. Expansion into forest lands would halt. Farmers would be given land grants in safer zones. Beast tamers and healers would form a new order to protect both people and wild creatures. Karin added a decree. No royal soldier shall raise a blade unless there is no other choice. Some lords disagreed. Others feared weakness. But over time, the people saw the results. Fewer attacks, restored balance, respect for the land. The crown of both months passed. Aryan stood in the palace garden one morning, gazing at the young trees planted in the bull's honor. Karin joined him. You gave the people something stronger than fear, he said. You gave them wisdom. You gave them protection, Aryan replied. Not with swords, but with presence. He laughed, not the laughter of victory, but of peace. Later that week, during the spring festival, the two brothers stood together on the royal balcony. Aryan raised his hand. People of Duran, today we honor not a beast defeated, but a lesson learned. Karin added, strength wins battles, but heart wins peace. The crowd erupted in cheers. And so it was that the kingdom of Duran entered a new age, one ruled not by a single crown, but by two brothers. One with heart, one with strength. Together they became legends.